Well, let's switch gears again and go back to football. What do you think?
All right.
It's that time of the podcast. You know, we've taken a week or two break from this only because there's not been any real football games to do any of our picks for. But we do our picks every week against the spread, and you know, give our thoughts on that. And we are also going to do this. I'm trying to do three things at once, so I apologize. What we are going to try to do is come basketball season, once we get into January and all the football's over, we're going to start into SEC play. We're also going to start doing our picks there on basketball inside the SEC only. But we'll take a look at those things and give our picks for the games. And we're going to kind of go in reverse order. And let me get a pen so I usually have Drew here to help me out, so I'm going to do double duty with the picks as well as the game itself. So the first matchup is going to be, well, here I've got what I was looking for. Kind of give everyone a breakdown of where we stand as well through the regular season. These are the regular season standings. Brett Young and Shane Bailey are both tied at 58, 29, and 2 against the spread. Followed up next would be Blair Smiley, our co-host here, 55, 32, and 2. Then we're going to have Chad Caldwell at 49, 38, and 2. Mark Wisner, 47, 40, and 2. And then we're just not going to worry about the rest. So yeah. Drew and Trent struggle right there at 500 or sub 500. But, you know, looking at some of those records, if you were someone that partakes of gambling, we did all right as a whole. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year if we knew what we were talking about, I'd said, it's still up for grabs. But it turns out we really do. So let's get on to our picks for the bowl games. We're going to include Miss Missouri and A&M in our picks this week, only because we're done with the regular season. We're going to welcome 2 new teams in the SEC, and what better way to do that than start them off in our bowl picks. So what we're going to do is look at the games, give our picks, and Blair, I'm going to let you kick off so John sees how we do this on the podcast. The first one up is Missouri. They are playing North Carolina at the Independence Bowl, and they are 4.5-point favorites.
I tell you what, I haven't paid that much attention to Missouri and obviously North Carolina with their coaching change, but I know Missouri throws it around a little bit and with Pinkel and everything. So I'm actually going to go, if I'm not mistaken, Missouri's got James Franklin as their quarterback, if I remember that correctly. So that'll be one thing next year. We'll have a James Franklin versus a James Franklin. So yeah, I think so. But I like Missouri in this one, 4.5. I think they'll cover that easily.
John?
I also like Missouri. I do. So I'm going to take them. And I'm 0-0, so.
There we go. Well, we do have a guest picker slot, and overall our guest pickers are 38, 24, and 1. So you've got to do well.
I hope to raise that up a little bit.
There we go. Blaine Gabbert, he plays for Missouri, right?
He wishes he still plays.
He definitely probably does.
Well, I do know that my research on Missouri is not where it needs to be as far as where they stand as far as quality, but I do know that they still know how to throw the ball, and North Carolina is a team that's on the rise. They were hard pressed to get some coaches over the last few years. I think they finally found somebody, and they're on their way up, but I don't think they're quite there yet. I like the 4.5 with Missouri as well. Next up, John, we're going to let you go first on this one. We have Texas A&M playing Northwestern at the, I love the names of these bowl games, Meineke Car Care Bowl in Texas. They are a 10-point favorite over Northwestern.
I like A&M. I mean, I don't know who's going to be coaching them in the bowl game. Do they know that yet?
I don't know.
Is the new staff, I guess, one of the coordinators? I don't know how that works. They did fire their coach.
Yeah.
But I just think that, again, size and speed.
One of their assistants is going to step up and be.
Probably doesn't really matter who it is, but
no.
I don't have that much faith. I mean, Northwestern's okay. I just think it's one of those conference things. I tend to lean towards the people that play better competition, so I'm going to go with that A&M.
Well, if you look at that, you look at I'm going to take A&M too. I think they're high potent offense. You know, I watched them play Arkansas in a couple games. I saw them play the Texas game this year, and they can put up a lot of points. One thing that they struggle with some is a little defense, and that's going to play well for Northwestern. So they're going to have an opportunity to score some. But you look at Northwestern, and they struggle in the Big Ten every year, and that's not a team. That's not a conference as a whole. That's just a scoring juggernaut. So with that being said, and you've got a 10-point spread, that Vegas thinks there's going to be some points being scored, and if there's points going to be scored in that game, it's going to have to go to A&M. So I'm taking A&M as well.
I think so too. I'm going to lean directly with you guys. A&M, I think they'll cover that. I don't know much about Northwestern, but I think Texas A&M, I know they've lost leads in the second half, but I think this is maybe a chance for them to kind of start anew, and with the kind of the new way that they're actually moving, this might be kind of a start off for them.
Yeah, I'm going to kick us off for the next game, and now we're into the heart of the SEC. This game is going to be played the 30th. 30th is Vanderbilt.
That's the 31st.
31st.
Mississippi State.
Mississippi. All right then. That works. I'm going to let Blair kick off that game. That worked out perfect. All right, so Vandy is back to that again. Vandy is playing Cincinnati. They're 2.5-point favorites in the Liberty Bowl, which is going to be the 31st, which is Saturday.
Yeah.
It's an afternoon game. Is that right? 3 o'clock
so.
or somewhere around there. I don't have the time.
I think it's 6.
If I
It
just
says 6:40, but
all I got to do is just click to my other screen that I have all the bowl games pulled up. How silly of me! It's a 3:30 Eastern start time. So the Vanderbilt Commodores, the new West End machine, 2.5 points is not enough. I think they're easily a touchdown favorite over Cincinnati. Cincinnati can score points. That's the one thing that Cincinnati has going for them. But this Vanderbilt defense is a different defense than you've seen from a Vanderbilt program. You couple that with a Vanderbilt program that's learning how to score points under Rodgers. They're not afraid to do some things. I think they're going to have a lot of tricks up their sleeve come this game. They're going to want to try to, just like they did the previous bowl game under Bobby Johnson, was that 2 years ago that they went to a bowl game? You know, they did a lot of trick plays and a lot of different looks and variations. And I see the same thing from Franklin on this. I think he really wants to come out. He's going to do everything he can to try to win this game to really catapult the Vanderbilt program. 2.5 points is not enough. So Vandy.
I'm right there with you. I actually will piggyback on what you said and catapult into 2012. I think this is what James Franklin's going to use this game for. I think they're going to have a rested defense, a little time off. Everybody's kind of going to be nice and fresh, and I think they're actually going to create an offensive game plan to kind of, I think this is their selling point. You know, they have actually started a great recruiting class, and those people actually recruited to them when they didn't really know what the expectation was going to be out there.
Yeah, they didn't know what they were in
right.
for.
And he lived up to the end of his deal, and I think this is another showcase that says, hey, we're gonna move the ball, and I think that defense is going to stiffen up. And I see this as a 10-plus point ball game. I think Vandy's going to use this. I think since he's rolling into kind of a buzzsaw here.
Let me stop real quick here. I think you're back to that recruiting point. I think you're really spot on there. I mean, when he was in those, and I don't know where they stand. The last time I looked at some recruiting news, and that's just not where my heart lies. I just can't delve into where all those high school players are and where they rank. But last I saw, they were a top 26 in the country, and
yeah, they haven't actually updated rankings recently, but they ESPN, they've been in the top 25. They've got, I think they have actually, if I'm not mistaken, they have recruited, I think, 1 4-star in the recent 15-year history, and I think he's got 4, if I'm not mistaken, that have already, according, and the 4-star is different here and there, so the recruiting rankings are all, skewed a little bit, but he's definitely rolling and fighting in state and going into Georgia.
But my point with that is, all those players that he was setting in their living room, you're generally you've got the benefit of a program
Right.
that's established and you know what you're getting, but he was selling a dream.
Yeah.
You know, he was trying to get people to buy into this dream. This is what we can be if you're on board with us. And all those individuals were on board, and now it's coming to fruition quickly. I mean, much quicker than most people would have thought. To take Vanderbilt to be a 6-6 program, new facilities, new contract, everything Vanderbilt got this year. You know, I think they're, I just don't like seeing that from a Kentucky standpoint. But props to Vandy. Anyways, go on, John. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. Call me a hater or whatnot. I don't really particularly care for James Franklin. I think, I mean,
Hater.
he does, you know, he does a good job selling the program. I just don't really, I don't foresee him staying too long. I don't see, when you look at their games, they have big games against, you know, they had Georgia at home. They have no Vandy fan support. As soon as, if he starts winning here, which I still doubt that he's ever going to get over 7 wins here, strongly doubt. I just don't see how he's going to stay. If they're not going to put people in the stadium when they have 40,000, something like that, a little bit over 40,000, I just don't see why he would stay here. Somebody's going to come along, say, okay, you've had success in the SEC, we'll give you a job where at least we can put 50, 60,000 people in the stands, and you know.
I think you're exactly right on the fan deal. I think what we actually need to see is from now on, and I think that they actually came out and said that because I think from a fan standpoint from Vanderbilt, if I was a fan of Vanderbilt, 25 years makes me pretty skeptical of saying, okay, well, I'll give him a year, let's see what actually happens. I would have been the kind of guy that would have gone to a game at the end of the year when I saw that they were playing well. But I think what actually is going to happen is that the Vandy administration just put the stamp on, hey, we're giving some money for some facilities. James Franklin has actually kind of sold that. And so I think they've got almost 10,000 sold through their ticket office. So I think they're going to put 20,000+ people in the stands for Liberty Bowl. We got to see. But I think this is the launching pad. I think if you're here next year doing the same thing and they're not selling out 40,000 and they're got a chance to go to a ball game, they got issues.
Yeah, I mean, Franklin threw out another challenge to the Vanderbilt hopeful and fans this week. I mean, they sold their allotment pretty quick, really, and you know, threw that challenge out there. And one thing we're forgetting is we don't know how much he's actually getting. You know, Vanderbilt University is a private university, so they don't disclose how much their coaches get paid. But I have a feeling that they came to the table this time. If they're coming out and they're willing to throw the money they are into facility upgrades, in an indoor facility, and all the things that they're promising publicly that they've actually put on paper that are going to have to finally happen down on West End in Nashville, that you're going to see that's going to change. And
now,
you can hate all you want, but
I mean, it's not.
I think he's there for a little while.
I don't hate them because they're not, to me, Vanderbilt. I don't look at them as like main competition really for the team that I like. I just don't. New facilities, you're always going to have the Vanderbilt. They're going to have to recruit a certain type of player.
Right.
They're not going to. It's like Notre Dame. That's why Notre Dame kind of went downhill. They had to recruit a certain type of player.
Yeah, that's really worked bad for Stanford, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, the thing about Stanford is too. I just don't think that they play in the strongest division. I mean, again, people are going to say, "Oh, hater," but to me, the Pac-10 or 12 or whatever it is, I'm not a big. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, you got to have a different plan. You got to have a little bit of a different deal. But you also got to understand that we're also not playing in 15 years ago. Yeah. And I think 15 years ago, a kid would have gone to an Alabama, a Tennessee, or a place there and actually sat for 2 years and worked his way up. Whereas today, I mean, frankly, what happened is James Franklin went in the living room and says, "You can go over there, but I'm giving you an opportunity to do something that's never been done." And today's kids have too much exposure. There's too much opportunity. They want to actually get in play. So that's where I think he's actually making a little bit of a headway from that standpoint. 15
years ago, you didn't have a program like Vanderbilt that was going to be on TV every Saturday but one, and that's pay-per-view, and that's the contract with the SEC. They're on 11 of their 12 games are going to be on TV in some way, shape, or form that you can get for free.
And he's got to go to the kid that can qualify, and he's got to go a little bit of a different route. But I think the other thing that James Franklin has is that Vanderbilt also went out on a limb and gave him his first head coaching job. Whenever you have that scenario, I mean, it's a little bit different than maybe saying that he's a Todd Graham and he's going to just jump from job to job. I think he's going to be there for a couple of years at least. But I'm anxious to see what he does. I think it's going to be difficult to win there. I'm right there with you. But the East is as wide open as it's ever been. And
if he can start doing those things and cementing a future there where Vanderbilt has some winning and some fan support, and we've talked about on podcasts a number of times the issues that he faces at Vanderbilt with fan support. I mean, the individuals that live in Nashville, most of them didn't go to Vanderbilt. They came from another university. I mean, they came from UT or Mississippi State, or not so much UK. We just are UK fans. But Auburn, Alabama, all those individuals come up here, so they have an allegiance to another program. They're not going to just say, oh, I grew up in Alabama, I went to Alabama, I live in Nashville now, so I'm going to be a Vanderbilt fan.
I think one other thing that he has going for him too is you got to look at the general economy. I think people are a little bit more concerned with, you know, that degree means something to them.
Right.
You know, and
well,
he might get the kids that are like, well, you know, if they're really thinking about the way things are, hey, I can use this Vandy degree. I might not be the best player, but I can use that degree to springboard into.
well, I think you actually see some of the better players are doing that's just like Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. I mean, he's going after the greatest talent, but he also understands that there's certain kids he can't recruit because it's just a waste of time. I think James Franklin has. I think he just has a plan that, hey, I'm gonna have to narrow my pool down, but I'm gonna have to go find that.
But I'm gonna be
kid.
successful in that
harder.
pool.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to work harder, and I've got to get the kids. And to be honest with you, I think Vanderbilt is open to allowing some exceptions in the door that they may have never allowed 10 or 15 years ago.
How much does it cost to go to Tennessee?
Per year?
Yeah.
Well, now it's probably a lot more. I would guess between $6,000 and $8,000.
All right, it's 30,000 plus.
39, yeah.
I mean, at
With
Vanderbilt.
yeah.
So you're talking. I mean, you could do a 4-year education almost for what you do for 1 year at Vanderbilt. So with that being said, it's an easy conversation if you're James Franklin and you have a qualified pool of applicants, basically, that you know are
That education is a high priority.
or at least smart enough
Yeah.
to make it in. That it might not be, because it might not be important to them, but it's important to mom and dad.
Right.
And you go in and you say, I'm giving your son a $40,000 a year education at a university that's top 15, top 20 in the country in academics to play on the biggest stage in college football, the SEC. It's an easy sell. I mean, if I were that kid's parents, it's like, okay.
Yeah, well, it's an easier sell if you have the facilities that actually allow you to do those things.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest key, that he actually, if they struck that $8 million check and get some type of practice facility, those types of things. I mean, they've got nice stuff, but you're also competing with a lot of people.
You know, the flip side of that, though, is that you have, let's say a kid is, let's say Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, going after a kid that Vandy wants. Then you flip on the TV, this is how many people we have in our stands, and then this is how many Vandy puts in.
Yeah, but
I
think
a bad day Tennessee puts.
Well, I think you're gonna lose more than you win. But the whole idea is that the pool that you're actually seeking is going to be a little bit of a different kid that actually turns on the TV on Saturday and sees those and goes, "Oh, I can go there." I think it's all about the pool that he's actually doing.
But you've also got the same, you know, your objection there. I mean, going back to sales techniques, if you want to start talking about that, your objection to easily overcome that. If you're sitting in that student's house is, yes, it would be a thrill to go to Alabama and run out in front of 100,000 screaming fans, but you're going to be sitting the bench for 2 years.
Yeah.
You can come to Vanderbilt. We're getting 40,000 fans. We're going to be excited to have you here, and you're going to play.
Or how cool it is to go into that 100,000 stadium and actually
beat
win.
them.
But are you going to win with players who are you the best players go to these schools and 5-star, 4-star, and a lot of them do get playing time their freshman year. Now some do sit. I do understand.
Well, I don't think you're gonna.
Can you win?
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that Tennessee's recruiting the greatest class ever, but are you going to win with 3-star players?
But let's face it, most of those individuals you're talking about won't qualify for Vanderbilt.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is that you're not. There's only so many 5-stars out there, so there's.
And 4-stars, just good. And I mean, they did get Jelks, and he's an O-lineman. You know, you're going to have. Some players are going to be able to get and qualify. I'm not saying that there's a 5-star. I think a 5-star is better than a 3-star. That doesn't matter to me, because I think that there's the way the rating systems go too are affected by who they have an offer from.
I think it's all about evaluation, because we can get off on recruiting, which would be a whole nother deal, and rankings and stuff, but rankings aren't the end-all be-all. And I can tell you, I mean, Mississippi State went 9-4 last year, and they're somewhere between 30 and 40th every year in recruiting. And it's because a kid, when you get just in Mississippi, because that's going to be the dominant state that they recruit in, you get past the top 15 players in the state of Mississippi, there aren't an Alabama, Auburn, a Tennessee, a Georgia, a Florida recruiting them. Automatically their stars aren't going to be higher. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So when a two-star kid in California, his junior year, gets offered by USC, Oregon, and Stanford, all of a sudden he becomes a 4-star. So there's a little bit of both of those things. I don't think that you're going to see Vanderbilt ever all of a sudden coming in with a top 10 class. But I do think that, hey, could they actually get a top 25 class once every 5 years? And can you win with the 3 stars? Yeah. I mean, you can win. I think you can win because I think that Dan Mullen can win at Mississippi State, and he's doing it with a lesser athlete, supposedly, through the recruiting rankings. But he's also redshirted 19 last year and 18 this year. So when you start doing that type of stuff, that's the only shot they got to win. Because they're not going to go and get 10 5-stars. They're not competing with USC that can take.
But it's like you said, if he's trying to sell, if Franklin's trying to sell playing time, and I don't want to talk about this because you said we.
Well, I don't think. Well, first of all, I don't think Vanderbilt's going to go out and say, "Hey, we're going to win 9 ball games every year." That's unrealistic. But I think that Vanderbilt can be a 6-6 to 8-win team or a 5 to 8-win team consistently, because the difference between a 5-win team and an 8-win team in the SEC is very, very thin. Now,
it's
once every but maybe they line it up to once every 5 years they have a shot to maybe win 8 ball games or 9 ball games and get to that level, and they're going to fall back. I mean, there's no way to keep it consistently from that standpoint. But I think they got a shot and schedule correctly, like Kentucky has done, and able to actually get those, not taking a shot at you.
Kentucky schedules to try to make a bowl game.
Right, exactly.
That's the only way. They don't schedule to improve. They get 4 teams that they should be able to beat. Well, 3. They've got Louisville regardless, and Louisville can be up or down.
Well, yeah, we got off on that. That's all right.
But
did you make a pick?
No. Let's bring this around.
I'll go ahead.
With all that Vanderbilt bashing, you can't take Vanderbilt now.
What is the spread?
Vanderbilt is giving 2.5.
Well, then, yeah, I guess I really can't. The only thing, the only reason I'm even leaning towards them is just because it is in Memphis, and I did read that thing about how they're gonna have probably about 15,000 people when it's all said and done. But Cincinnati was hot at the end of the season. I'm gonna go ahead and take Cincinnati then.
Well, I'll tell you, don't ever look at the allotment on how many fans they actually have, because Mississippi State sold out their allotment. But when you go through the school, you're in certain sections. Liberty Bowl, you can call directly there. You get better seating than even the school allotment. So they're probably going to have more than that amount that actually show up. I'm expecting a pretty decent crowd for them.
Even 20,000. I mean, like I said, it's hard for me to bash. But I mean, I'm not going to give them. They did play well. I just think that Cincinnati was on a roll towards the end of the season.
Well, the good thing is it'll all work out, and we'll know.
Yeah. Cincy's no cupcake. They're 9-3. I mean,
and they have played SEC before. They did. I mean, they got beat by Tennessee. I'm not saying this is the best competition, but they might. I'll take Cincinnati. We'll just leave it at that.
All right. Next, we're going to let you lead off again. We have the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, the Urban Meyer Bowl. We'll say.
You let me take it off, or John?
Oh, we missed. We got
Mississippi State. Yeah.
We didn't even go to Mississippi State. Yeah. Let's backtrack there. We're going to go. The Franklin American Music City Bowl. Mississippi State is giving 7 against Wake Forest.
I'm taking Mississippi State, of course. I actually, I'm looking forward to this. I think this is a good slot for State. They've been 4-1 in the last 5 bowls. Mullen obviously prepared us for probably the best game we played last year when we went to a bowl game, so he has a nice schedule. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to be able to run the ball on Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest actually is a little more pass happy than they've been in the past. They normally are kind of more of a run oriented team, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we're gonna win easily. That's just me.
John,
I'm going to go with State also. I just think didn't Wake Forest lose to Vandy last game, so
yeah. Bad.
There you go.
I'm noticing these picks are leaning heavily to the SEC. And I said this last week, and the lines did only three lines moved since we looked at the numbers last week, and they didn't move any more than a half a point either way. But of the what we have 11 teams, the SEC counting Missouri and A&M, that made a bowl game. The SEC is favored in 9 of them, and we are a pick 'em in the other 2, and that's LSU, Alabama. So we're favored basically. We're not favored to lose in any of them, in any single bowl game. So that just shows the strength of the SEC, and I think we have a little SEC bias here because I'm going to go state as well.
But it's going to change down here a little bit.
But with Wake Forest, though, I mean, you really have a team that kind of backslided in. I mean, they struggled the last month in November. You know, in the NFL, you say, how well did you do in December?
Yeah.
You know, generally relates you well. Same thing here in the college ranks, playing well in November, and that's something I don't think they did well. So
yeah, they actually are a pretty young team, so they had a hard time finishing some games. I mean, they won against Florida State, and that was a big upset at the time, and it basically gave the game away for Clemson to play in the ACC championship game. So, I mean, I think they have the ability to put together a nice deal. But I just think State's defense is going to be pretty tough to deal with.
All right, John, we're going to let you kick off again. Now we're at the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, or the Meyer Bowl, with this Florida versus Ohio State, and Florida is favored by 2.
Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and take Ohio State. I don't know, Florida's just been so up and down this year, and I mean, 2 coaching staffs are always better than 1, so I'm going to take Ohio State. It's kind of like I said last week. I know it's not, they can say whatever is whatever. Don't tell me that Urban Meyer's not going to tell them exactly what player does what. I mean, that's, come on.
I'm going to, this one is one that, there's a couple on here that scare me, and this one scares me a little bit. Only because Florida struggled so hard to score a point against Florida State the last game of the year. And you know, that's where they struggled, and I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to say I'm going to take Florida, and I'm going to think that they're going to piece together a crazy offense with Charlie Gong. They're going to come up with some crazy stuff. Brantley's had time to get healthy. That's been a big issue for them. They started out the season pretty good, and then Brantley got hurt, so they've got time to heal. And with those things coming in, I think they're going to come in with a different feel than they played in November, and I'm going to take Florida.
Well, Shane, before you actually spoke, I was leaning towards Ohio State, and you have swung me to Florida with your breakdown there. I agree with you on the Brantley deal. The reason that I was leaning towards Ohio State was the better quarterback and the young kid for Ohio State, who I think is going to be really good. But I do think Brantley getting a month off to kind of heal up, and then also their 2 speedsters having a chance to kind of freshen up, and I think their defense as well. And it's being played in Florida, so I think Muschamp is knowing that this Urban Meyer is going to be kind of involved in this one way or another. And I'm going to lean towards Florida as well, covering the 2.
Now that's the Gator Bowl. That's in Orlando, right?
No, that is actually Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Okay,
yeah.
So that's a little further away than from Gainesville.
Yeah, and so
it's a huge game.
It's a huge game. Yeah, it's a Tebow's hometown too, from that standpoint. But yeah, I think Florida. I mean, I think the over/under ought to be how many times Urban Meyer's name is going to be mentioned in the broadcast.
Yeah, again, I want to see him dot the I. All right, next we have Auburn is giving 2 against Virginia in the Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta. It's my turn to kick off, right? Yeah.
Is this one of your scary ones?
It's the other one I'm scared about. Yeah. I'm going to stick with the SEC only because I don't know a whole lot about Virginia. Auburn, we've talked about their slide and how they've won games at the beginning of the season that they probably really didn't deserve to win and probably don't deserve to be here. They've got coordinator issues left and right. They've got every reason in the world that they shouldn't win this game. What keeps me on Auburn is, we've had a week to look at this, and the line didn't move. All 3 of the games that we talked about, there was a half-point movement. didn't have issues with coaches or any news this week that caused it. It was just money going the other way. So Vegas doesn't seem to think that, you know, losing an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator and a star-stud running back is going to be an issue. You know, Michael Dyer, we didn't even talk about that. He's not going to be eligible for this game, and that still didn't even move this line. So that tells me either Vegas has a lot of belief in Auburn and their system, or they don't believe in Virginia. And so with either way, I'm going to have to take Auburn.
I was leaning one way, and then you started speaking.
I'm persuasive, aren't I?
And I chose to go to Virginia.
I told you all the reasons why you shouldn't do Auburn.
I like Virginia in this for some reason. Auburn's got everything set up to be, hey, they got the world against them, and Chiswick's going to come out and, you know, beat his chest and flex and, you know, do his little, you know, pointed jowl and all that kind of stuff and grit his teeth. And I think they'll come out kind of emotional, but I think losing Dyer is a big deal. I think losing the two coordinators. I think if you lose one, you're okay, but I think both of them together is going to be a little bit of a difficult deal. And Virginia, I mean, Virginia had a shot at home against Virginia Tech to go to the ACC Championship and got blown out. And so I think a little bad taste in their mouth. I think it's a chance for them to kind of redeem their season. That they had a very successful season. They won 8 ball games, if I'm not mistaken.
8-4.
I like Virginia in this one, and a very close ball game.
I like Virginia. I liked them before you guys even started talking about it, but I just think that, I mean, you lose your D coordinator, your O coordinator. I mean, who's going to be coaching? Is your tight ends coach going to be calling the plays? I mean, I'm sure Chiswick probably will, but Virginia.
Okay. Let's see. The next game on the list is South Carolina, 2.5-point favorites over Nebraska in the Capital One Bowl. Blair?
I'll take it off. I'm going to go South Carolina in this one, and I'm going to actually go. I think 2.5 is pretty small in this one. I think their defense is going to really disrupt Nebraska. I think the little bitty quarterback for Nebraska is going to be scared for his life. The thing, the South Carolina is one of those risk-reward defenses again, so you can kind of gash them a little bit. They're going to give up a couple of big plays, but I think they actually will make a lot of plays. And I think Connor Shaw, I think, again, like we talked about, Spurrier kind of figured out that he's going to have to run the ball a little bit more with his quarterback and not sit back and throw it around. So I like the ability with Shaw feeling good, kind of a month off. I give Spurrier the nod.
I like South Carolina. I was thinking 35-3. I think it's going to be a huge blowout. I don't think it's going to be close. It's like you said, Taylor Martinez. I mean, he couldn't get it done in the Big Ten. No way he gets it done against that defense. They're going to destroy him.
I'm going to take South Carolina as well, but the interesting things about this to me is that I'm hearing something in the background. I guess I got some speakers on. Sorry. If you look at Nebraska's schedule this last year, you know, they did have one really big quality win. They beat Michigan State, who was ranked 11th, 24-3. You know, but then they did turn around and lose, and Penn State, 17-14. But then they lost to Michigan, they got blown out, 45-17 there. They also got blown out against Wisconsin. So you start talking about programs that have great quality offenses they struggled against. Penn State doesn't have a great offense. We saw that when they played Alabama. You know, Michigan State did have a pretty good offense, but with that being said, you know, it looks like they're going to struggle to put up points against a team that can A, have a good defense, and B, have the effective offense, which South Carolina seemed to find towards the end. Like you said, once Spurrier gave in and let Shaw run an offense that he was comfortable in, being able to hold the ball and turn it in and run it, pass the ball when he needed to, they were able to effectively put some points on the board. And so I do see this going much higher than a 2.5-point game. So, John, Georgia 3.5 against Michigan State, back-to-back Big Tens.
Well, it's pretty much like I said about Georgia the last 2 weeks. I just don't believe in Mark Richt. I just think that, you know, I think Georgia on paper probably has more talent. I just think, I think this comes down to coaching, and I like Michigan State.
I'm going to take Georgia. I think I'm going all SEC. I'm going to have trouble figuring that out at the end when we get to two SEC teams. But you know, we just talked about Michigan State. They're we're looking at right now the 17th ranked team in the country versus the 16th team in the country. Their only loss outside the they lost 2 out of conference games, didn't they? They lost Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Notre Dame. Other than that, they've got some really, really impressive wins. They've got the ability to throw some huge points on the board. Throwing up against Indiana, they threw up 55 against. But Georgia, they've got another month to prepare. Unlike you, I like Rick. I think he's done an amazing job there. I don't think he should have lost the South Carolina game the way he did, but I can't fault him for losing the Boise State game. But they've got that program in the right direction, and I don't have anything else to say. But I'm going to take Georgia by 3. They're going to cover that 3.5.
I'm actually going to take Michigan State, and the reason for it, I think it's going to be a relatively close ball game because I think they both got good offenses. I think they both got pretty good defenses. I know Georgia is ranked pretty high, but I know that Michigan State's got a good defense as well. But if you remember last year, Michigan State was left out of the BCS. They went down to Alabama, and Alabama blew the doors off of them, like 31-0.
Yeah.
And I think this is an opportunity. They got a great quarterback. I think this is a good opportunity for them to come in and be prepared with a little bit more of an urgency because of what happened last year. I think they'll be a little bit more focused, and I like Michigan State, but I also like a 3-point ball game.
What you say reminds me of what Ohio State fans were saying the last couple of years, but because they would come in and the SEC would blow them out, and they talk about all the ways they learned from that and how they've had another year and they're a little bit better. And then the same scenario would happen the next year.
Yeah, but Georgia's not any Florida, and Georgia's not any of the other ones they play.
We'll see how it throws out. And the good news for the Outback Bowl's Tampa, is that right? Tampa. So it's a lot closer to Georgia than Michigan State. So you're going to see a lot of Georgia fans in the.
Oh, Michigan State. Those Big Ten people, they bring lots of people. They like to drink too.
And it's warm.
Yeah.
They used to get out of that cold. Whose turn is it to kick us off next?
Go ahead.
All right, Arkansas 7.5 over Kansas State in Jerry's place.
I like Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to blow out Kansas State actually. And I mean, Kansas State has played well. They definitely have some good quality wins this year. But I mean, Arkansas's offense to me I mean, they're going to put up a ton of points, and Kansas State doesn't seem like a great defensive team. I mean, it's probably going to be high scoring. I'd probably look. I would feel probably comfortable over 60 points. So I'm going to take Arkansas.
I'm just going to pull up what the over/under is on that while I do a little talking.
I'm going to guess like 65, 66 probably.
Let's see. That game is what day is that game?
It's like
It's on the
6th or something.
63 is the over/under. So Vegas thinks there's going to be a lot of points scored as well. I tend to agree with a lot of those things. What I'm also going to say, I'm going to take Arkansas. What I'm also going to say is that when they played LSU, they got knocked down on the floor. Well, if you remember, they came out strong and took a lead, and then all of a sudden, LSU was able to flip a switch and gain control of the momentum somewhere around midway through the second quarter, and were never looked back after that. The same thing happened against Georgia. LSU is just a different program than anybody else in the country. That's not going to happen to Arkansas twice. They're going to have a month to prepare. They got pretty banged up towards the end of the season as well, and they're going to be healed and healthy. And you're going to see Arkansas come out and just start slinging the ball left and right. The over/under 63, and I think that Arkansas is going to be on the other side of that by 10. So
I'm going to go Arkansas as well. I don't know if y'all seen Kansas State play this year, but they got that all everything quarterback. He's a little bit undersized. He's as gutsy as can be, but he makes everything go for them. So I think Arkansas, unlike some of the other schools that have had coordinator changes, I don't think it's going to affect them as much. With Petrino obviously being the offensive guy, he just brings in his brother. I know that I think the defensive, did they actually settle on the defensive coordinator? It doesn't really matter because it's Arkansas, but I like Arkansas in this one. I think that they're going to get up. They played in Jerry's house, twice this year.
It's a home game.
3, yeah. I mean, so I think it's going to be a fun game, but I do think Arkansas pulls away, with a couple of touchdowns there at the end.
All right, that leaves the BCS National Championship game that's going to be Monday, January 9th. This is a pick'em game, Alabama and LSU. I'll lead us off here. I've went against LSU a couple times this season. It's crazy to do that. Every time I do, they prove me wrong, and I'm a believer. I always thought they were good, but I didn't think that they were as good as they are. And what scares me about that is that Alabama has played them once, so they know how each other's team is, and LSU is all about taking the momentum from the other team. And if they're able to do that, they did that with Georgia. I already talked about this. They did that with Arkansas, and were able to really control the game. I could see that happening with Alabama. If they were able to do a couple things all of a sudden and actually score a touchdown against Alabama. And Vegas agrees with me. The over-under is 40, and the combined score last time they played was what? Was it 9-6, 15. Right?
Yeah, 9-6. Yeah.
So 15. They feel like there's going to be some touchdowns and some points scored this time that didn't happen. And if that's the case, I think LSU can put more points on the board than Alabama.
I like LSU. I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than last time. The thing about LSU is, if I'm them, I'm going to dare them. I'm going to dare Alabama to throw the ball. I'm going to stop. I'm going to put 7-8 in the box, and you have 2 All-American corners on the outside. I mean, their defense is ridiculous. And I'm not saying that Alabama's not good, but they just haven't had a quarterback in the last 10 years that I've been anywhere close to being impressed with. I mean, It's like you said, they did open up against, in the SEC Championship a couple years ago against Florida, but I just don't see it. Obviously, you need to stop the running backs. I like LSU. I'm gonna just go say somewhere about maybe 17-3 is what I'm thinking.
Well, I'm just kind of strange. Yeah, I'm right there with you guys with LSU. And there's a couple of things. Obviously, Alabama, put more offense, had more yards on offense. The last game, missed 4 field goals, I believe, out of the 6 opportunities. They moved the ball well on them, which you can do on LSU. We've all kind of talked about that. They kind of have that risk reward. LSU made that play with the strip away at the end zone on one of probably the play of the year from that standpoint. So I think what the difference is in this game is going to be special teams. I think when you get in these big games, there's no comparison who has a better special teams. Alabama's just weak in that area, and I think everybody's kind of set up for Alabama to kind of pull this thing out, and I know it's going to be a very close game, but I think it's going to be higher scoring. The problem with Alabama is that unlike LSU's defense, kind of the risk reward that we talk about is that they basically just put up a wall that you just can't get past. And LSU proved that they couldn't really move the ball, but I think with Jefferson, with a little bit of time, I think they'll have an opportunity to put some points up. But I think a big special teams play is going to work out.
And you're not going to see Jared Lee back and forth like you did with that last time either. It's Jefferson's game. And
I think we're in a neutral site, so we're going to be. I think it's going to be more of an LSU. But I mean, you're talking about can you have the stakes any greater than New Orleans for an Alabama, Louisiana State? I mean,
well, is it really a neutral field for LSU?
No. I mean, Alabama's right there. That's the problem. Is Alabama's going to have some people there.
Oh yeah, I know.
And so,
but Baton Rouge is 40 minutes.
Yeah,
plus
it is.
But the sponsors. The thing about this game is, with all national championship games, a lot of the tickets go to sponsorships.
Right.
Most of those are going to be local businesses, and I'm assuming most of those are LSU fans.
Yeah. Or national chains that they. Yeah. A large majority of the tickets sold outside the allotments in this situation are already spoken for through corporate sponsorships and corporate purchases. You're right. So you don't necessarily have that. but you are going to have a larger fan base from LSU because I mean it's in.
Plus all the crazies that are probably just going to be outside the stadium getting drunk.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to, I mean, obviously the demand ticket's going to be nuts. If Auburn, Oregon shut down StubHub like it did last year, this is just going to shut it down a month ahead of time.
And you look, just looking back at the season, I mean, look who LSU's played and beat.
I think it's just a magical year for them. I think they just have that thing, and the thing that I keep coming back to was, and I love telling all my Alabama friends because they think that they're going in there and just going to completely dominate, and they may do that. You know, I would like to actually see LSU win. I hate LSU and Alabama, but there's nothing more joyful than actually seeing Alabama actually waddle in misery, and doing that would be twice to the same team, and that would be the ultimate misery for them. But Alabama was the one that made mistakes, and that's not a Saban trait.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they got the kicking game. I think the special teams is just a big difference, and I think offensively, I think Miles is kind of that gunslinger kind of a guy, and I think that's just what's going to happen.
It also just makes things a little bit awkward because let's say Alabama does go in there and win, then what do you do? Because, I mean, LSU's beat them. They played a much tougher schedule, so when they go to crown, in theory, they'll have won the game for the national championship, but is it going to be one of those shared national championship games?
Well, I mean, the BCS national champion has to go to the winner of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's set in stone.
In terms of just the other polls and everything else.
Well, everything else, I mean...
they're 1-2, but unless Alabama goes in there and destroys LSU, I don't see really how you're not going to have
the only way you can have a split national championship, because all the polls have to follow suit.
Except for the one.
Except for the AP.
Yeah.
So the AP can still vote LSU in as number one if Alabama beats them.
Exactly.
But the others have to follow suit and vote the national champion as the number one team. So, I mean, that's the only place you can have a split national champion is the AP and the BCS.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for our picks. We'll end the roundtable by just going open mic like we do every week. John, anything you want to throw out there to everyone?
No, I'm just glad I got to come back. Happy holidays to everybody. Drive safe out there, enjoy it. I guess most people are going to be off the following Monday too, so it'll be a nice, should be a pretty nice long weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to, the start of all these games. I'm originally from Philly, so it was good to see Temple last night. I mean, I'm not, and Tennessee also beat Wyoming earlier this year, so that kind of
nice.
the duel. But just looking forward to everything. A little bit off topic, NBA does start coming up, and it's just going to be good to see those guys. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest NBA fan in the world, but I do enjoy watching them. It's good to see the people that work for those arenas get back to making some money, especially around the holiday season. So just happy holidays, and I guess we'll see you next year.
And they can find you on Twitter?
Twitter, John_Schultz, SCHULTZ.
Perfect. Blair?
You can find me at Blair Smiley, SMYLY, and again, happy holidays. I am not an NBA fan, even though I play basketball. I hate it. And although I do want to see all the people get back to work for crying out loud. But, pretty much done with Christmas shopping, I think, supposedly. So we'll see.
All right. Well, my wife tells me we've got most of ours done. I've been very lucky. She's with 2 kids, it's really hard for us just both go out and go shopping together. So I've left most of that up to her. We've got most of that accomplished. I'm with you, Blair. I'm not a huge NBA fan. Never have been. I will say that the product they put out the last 2 or 3 years has greatly improved over what it has been. And I will second the sentiments there. I mean, I hate that the fact that the players' greed and the owners' greed, it's everybody's at fault there, caused a lot of hardworking, minimum wage type earners to struggle and be out of a lot of income that they would have, that needed for their family. I know what it's like to be a one-income family, not by choice, but by somebody else's choice. And I get to experience that even more now. And so I can appreciate how somebody else's boneheaded, selfish decisions affect a family, and it's not right. And I'm not going to go down that alley or get on that soapbox. It was wrong for them to do that. I commend the Major League Baseball, if I want to commend anybody, because they got their work stoppage issues mapped out, complete, got their contracts underway a whole year before their contract came up. I mean, they understand how important this stuff is, not only to the good of the game, but to the good of everyone around them to work that out. So I want to give them huge kudos for doing that. Now, that just sets it up for people to make lots of money, and that's great. There's lots of selfish reasons that they did that, but you know, they understand the importance of it. The NFL, you know, they had to do some, they still got it in before the regular season started. So I'm not going to give them full credit because they had to miss the Hall of Fame game. So,
Right.
but you can follow me at P. Shane Bailey. That's my Twitter. Again, I'll throw out that Roundtable can be found at SECSRT. That's our Twitter. 2 days are still going on. We have another week left in the month of December. If you happen to be listening to this and we're 2 hours in, I can't believe we go this long. It just, time flies by. But if you're still hanging in and listening and it's not in December, that means you must like what you're listening to. So even if it's not 2 days, go out there, find us on Facebook at SECSRT, find us on Twitter. You know, if you're listening now, I should have said this earlier, but we're going to be doing some live blogging during some of the SEC bowl games. So make sure you check out our website, SECSRT, as those ball games are going on. Hop in, join the discussion, tell us what you're thinking of the plays, the refs, the catches, the fumbles, whatever's going on. We're going to be talking about it, doing some live blogging there on the website. So love to have you guys involved and participating in that. The best way we know how we're doing is by you telling us. So, you know, go out there, communicate with us, get involved, join us up, and that's all for the Roundtable today, and we will talk to you one more time before we end this year. Thanks so much.